Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Dune and Friends. I am your host, Dune Wynn. We're coming to you live from Sherwood Park, Alberta, here where I'm at. And our guest today, just joining us from Edmonton, Alberta, it is Mr. Percy Marshall. Now, Percy Marshall has a rich background in music going back several decades, but let me do an introduction for Percy before inviting him to join us on screen here, folks. And folks, if you can hear us, give us a comment or something like that. Some of you are commenting already, so that's good. Wonderful, wonderful. Percy Marshall was born Christmas Eve of 1954 in the Royal Alex Hospital right here in Edmonton. And he grew up in Edmonton's Hardisty, Capilano area on the Southside and became interested in music in the early 1964 at the age of 9 when he saw the Beatles, Ed Sullivan, who hasn't been affected by that, who lived in those areas at those times, right? He enrolled in guitar lessons the following week. Here's a man of action. Many different guitar schools followed through the years, including college. He joined his first band called the Druids at the age of 11 and consequently played his first paid gig there. And after mostly rehearsing, but occasionally gigging with the various bands in junior high, in 1971, he helped form a band called Captain Nobody. For about 6 years, in the early 70s, this band could be seen and heard in many high school and community dances and taverns throughout Alberta and BC. He spent 2 years studying and teaching classical guitars in the early 70s at the local music school. In 1976, he enrolled in the music program at Grant MacEwan College. Shortly after that, formed a musical duo in which he performed throughout Alberta, playing mostly back-to-back six-nighters, folks. Six-nighters. Wow, that's a special time way back when. Hey, six-nighters. So he married to his childhood sweetheart in 1979, after which they did a 6-week backpack trip throughout Europe and for their honeymoon. And they had 2 children who are now in their 30s and are blessed with 2 grandchildren. In 1983, he helped form a band called Cold Feet with remnants from the Captain Nobody. And the band featured twin lead guitars and was a mainstay for the locals scene until the passing of leader Gary Pond in 2019. In 1985, he joined a band with local singer and songwriter Bobby Mowbray and bassist Ron Rote. The band gigged steady in the Edmonton music scene and was successful in getting an original song from the 2 writers on the K97 Homegrown LP. When Ron Rote left the band, they reformed with a new bassist name, and the name changed. And the new lineup recorded and released an LP back in 1990, and that was garnered great reviews and won Alberta Recording Artists Association Award, ARIA. For their Project Discovery TV appearance. And they also released a video which received airplay on the fledgling Much Music TV channel. Much Music, well, that takes us back, hey? In 1986, he completed the electronics program at NAIT and was hired by the local company, full-time photocopier technician. And after 4 years of that, he was promoted to technical instructor and remained there for 30 years through 3 ownership changes. He retired in 2017 and at the age of 62. And so in 1993, he helped form a band called, with some of the former members from Taikoi Ride, Jensen, Interceptor, and Hot Cottage. So with these folks, the band was called the Geriatric, and performed frequently in the Edmonton scene. In 1998, he was asked to join a band with Gord Steinke, and who was a newsman at the Edmonton ITV channel at the time. And the band perform a lot of music festivals, including the warming up for the likes of Nickelback and Love It or Hate Nickelback. Those are some big names there, and a slew of great outdoor summer festivals. And they receive another ARIA award for the best rock heavy metal artist. Well, that's cool. And so in 2002, he was asked to join local legendary band Nomads, and later the Classics, and performed with them until they folded in 2014. 2008, he was asked to join a unique Celtic rock band called the Celtic Fusion Illusion, and featuring bagpipes and so on. And although they've gone through many personnel changes, the band is still together, working on finishing their third CD. And in 2014, he was joined a fellow Classics band member in the band, featuring the local legendary singer Mel Dagan. And unfortunately, Mel passed away shortly before the first gig. And so the band decided to continue and convince another local legendary legend, Barry Allen, Mr. Barry Allen, to join them. And so they changed their name to Barry Allen and the New Rebels, and performed several concerts, including the Horizon Theatre and Arden Theatre. And the band featured Barry's last CD before his unfortunate demise earlier this year. And at the same time, the group joined forces with Barry Allen to also form a side group to play classic rock, and the members are very fond of. And that side group became known as the Persons of Interest, and is still current today. And 2017, he joins the Linchwell Band, which won the International Blues Competition and at the local level. And they went to Memphis, Tennessee to perform there. And in 2008, he became the recipient of the Edmonton Legends of Music Hall of Fame, and he's played in over 30 bands in his career, and spanning 50 years, and had played on over 10 CDs. So today, Percy is actively gigging with Persons of Interest, Celtic Fusion Illusion, the Linchwell Band, and the Angela Mackenzie's Very Tasty Band. And he hopes to continue as long as he can and able. So with that illustrious career and significant milestones along the way, let's join me in giving Percy a warm welcome to our show. Percy, welcome, and thank you for joining us today, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot, dude. I listened to that long-winded biography, and I thought, that can't be me.
Yeah.
No, I forgot to mention one of the groups I'm playing with now, Thomas Alexander and the Fusion Experience Band, which is a band with, again, a legend from the city, Thomas Alexander, that goes way back to the Skeleton Key in the 60s. So
wonderful.
That's fun.
Still very active in live gigs and whatnot, COVID aside. And once we're done with that, hey, Percy, I know we have an hour booked, but if you don't have time, if you don't have anything scheduled after this, and I certainly don't today, so we can extend it beyond the hour if you like. We certainly continue yakking along. I'm sure there's lots of stuff to share with our viewers. And I know we have some videos going back to the 80s and 90s and 2000s and so on to share with our viewers. And also, maybe just give us a quick story to kind of start us off on this conversation. Do you have a story in mind that takes us back to kind of some of the beginning moments?
Well, you had mentioned in one of my bios doing 6-nighters back to back in the duo, and I really miss those days. I mean, it sounds like a lot of work, but you wouldn't believe how tight bands could get when they're doing 6 nights in a row back to back. And unfortunately, in today's music scene, there is no more 6 nights back to back. There's no more 6 nights, period. You're lucky if you get 2 or 3 nights in a row. So, I mean, back in those days, it was nothing to load up a U-Haul and 6 of us pile into an old Pontiac and drive to God knows where, somewhere in the middle of winter to northern BC, and set up in some tavern somewhere and play nights and think nothing of it.
Change of time, the sign of the time. Today, if you say Pontiac, some young people might not even know what that is. What's a Pontiac? Hey, Percy, I know we're on 720, but maybe if you can switch back to 480 for me, just because your internet is struggling to render the 720 there. So if you could flip it back to that. So 6-nighter. That's. Now, we already have a number of our viewers sort of chiming in here. We have Laura Lee Hodges watching. Rocco, your buddy Rocco is watching there as well. Don Marcotte is watching. And Laura Lee is watching. Now, I just want to confirm, are we getting sound out there, folks?
I hope they're getting sound. I'm getting sound.
Yeah, everybody's getting sound. I think it was just the very when we were just in the silent mode there. But
Right.
so hopefully everybody can hear us loud and clear. Terry said, Rocco, everybody's good. And
I just lowered the resolution. Hopefully that helps it.
Yeah, so we have some friends saying hi here. Julia says hi. Lots of people watching. We have 11 people watching already,
Oh my goodness.
and we're just rolling here. So
they don't know I'm not wearing any pants.
This the it's the COVID phenomenon. Pants are optional these days. All right, so tell us, how did you get into music? Obviously, you share the story about the Ed Sullivan, but did you have no musical kind of interest prior to watching that show, or did you watch it, or did you have musical interest but didn't think it was for you until you saw Ed Sullivan show of the Beatles, or what?
No, I can remember exactly. And to me, at age 9, I didn't even know music existed. You know, until I mean, it's an age-old story, and lots of people have the same story, but it was my parents that enticed us kids to see some new band that was from Britain on Ed Sullivan. And I was just absolutely blown away. My mother told me later that it was like I was hypnotized. And, you know, I don't know if it was the music so much as all the screaming girls. That was
well, you know, it's a reminder of the power girls have on us guys, right? Just you know, they make us do things like we didn't even dream of, right?
Yeah, very definitely. So it was that. And like I say, to me, music didn't start in my 9-year-old mind until I saw the Beatles performing and playing that music. From then, I was hooked. You know, and you mentioned I started guitar lessons within 2 weeks after that came on. So I mean, right after the show, I decided that's what I wanted to do, and talked my parents into sending me to a local guitar school.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. You know, it just reminds us that sometimes some of the things that we do impact others, and we don't know how we impact others, right? So I'm sure there are people out there somewhere who says, you know, I saw Percy played, and that's what caused me to, you know, get into music, right? So we don't know the impact on people, right?
That is so true. As a matter of fact, I've run into a couple of local guitar players who I always admired growing up and playing music, and run into them and found out that they were influenced by myself seeing me play at some high school dance, you know, back in the 70s, and that got them going. And here I am admiring them, and the feedback back and forth. It's great, you know. And I've been really fortunate over the years to have played with just about all the what I called local music heroes that I watched in the 60s and 70s. I've now had the chance. I'm old enough. I've played with pretty much all of them at some point.
Wow, that's awesome. So out there we have 15 people watching and climbing their Percy. And
hey guys,
cheers everybody. And now you have some video clips to share with us. We'll get to them in just a moment here. But I'm going to start with a question, a different kind of question. And that is, if you think about the highlight of your career, your 30-some, 50 years of playing and whatnot, do you have a story in mind of a highlight that is top of mind as you think about it now? It doesn't have to be highlight of all time. It's just top of mind right now.
Well, there's a few of them. One of the big ones for me was with the Nomads when I first joined them, probably within the first year that I was with them. We did a gig at the Wind Spear with the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra backing us up. And that was mind-blowing, because somewhere in my life around grade 11 or so, I had expressed a want to go to Banff School of Fine Arts and learn some classical. So for me to be standing in front of the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra, being able to play with them, that was a true highlight. And it was just a wonderful gig. There's that. There's a few. One back in about 1972, when it was called the Exhibition back at Northlands. They used to have a youth pavilion that they would have bands play at. And there was one gig we did at that youth pavilion that I still have people coming up to me today and saying, hey, I was there. You guys were great. And it was one of those magical nights where we couldn't do wrong.
Yeah, those.
So those are probably the most memorable, I think, performances.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us about this first clip that we were going to share with our viewer. This first clip, let me just get it right here. I believe is Amy Wonder video. Tell us about that while I cue that up.
Yeah, that was from 1990, and that was a group that formed out of another group I was in called Out of the Blue. Ron Rawl was the bass player of Out of Blue, and when he left the band, we got Don Bradshaw in, changed the name to Any Wonder, and became mostly an original band, and did an album. And during the album, we got a factor grant from the government to do a video. And the video was a pretty new thing in 1990. Much Music was just basically had only been going for a short time. So we had the grant. We had a group called the New Picture Crew, filmed the whole thing at the U of A, and they hired dancers to come in. We had a horn section. The band didn't have a horn section, so they were actors pretending they were playing horns. But so the band was playing it, and you know, we lip sync to the music because you have to do that, but and the vocals. But I mean, the track is all us playing from the studio. So the video came out pretty good for its time, and it did get some music on some play on Much Music.
Yeah.
So What Do You Look Like Upside Down?
Yeah. So now
Mowbray, yeah.
Now I can honestly say I know somebody who's been Much Music fame. Okay, let me know if you can hear this sound, Percy, when I go ahead and play this.
Okay. I can hear it. Okay, it's chopping now. She sat down at my table. She said, say the first thing that's on your mind. She said, say the first thing, the very first thing on your mind. So I said, what do you look like? Upside down. I said, hey, what do you look like when you are hanging around, and you are upside down, upside down. Hey. My friend, he said that you must be crazy to talk to her that way. Hey, there's a vision of loveliness enters your life, and you're chasing her away. Well, she just stared into my eyes, her mouth in a little pout. Then she jumped up, she shook a finger in my face. She said, I know what you're talking about. Then she said, so what do you look like? Inside out. If I push all the buttons on your chest, some funny comments there. When you're inside out, inside out. Town as we keep up our traces, embracing this lunacy that we found. So maybe we will dance together for the rest of our lives, and we'll be singing. So what do you look like? Upside down. We'll sing, hey, what do you look like when you're just hanging around, and you are upside down. Upside down. I wanna be with you for the rest of my life. If I do, will I see what you look like?
Upside down. Upside down. Upside down. Upside down.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah, that the video was a little jumpy here, and the sound was at times, but that's okay. It came across.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
So,
go ahead.
What was it like to? Is that a different experience than many of your kind of other music experience? Is it a bit of a standout? I would imagine.
It's very different. It's not like gigging at all. I mean, and you hear actors say this. There's a lot of standing around while they set up the cameras, and they had one of those cameras in a little cart on a rail that they set up in front of the stage. So all of that stuff took a lot of time, and what I think they called the gravity boots, which they hung our singer upside down from so that he could do the upside down scenes. I'm amazed that he could actually, the blood didn't all rush to his head and cause him to faint, but he was able to do it. So it was very different. And you know, same thing with having all the dancers basically standing around until they were called to be in the place. And I should mention, because I just noticed my daughter here is on the chat, that she was in the audience. She had to be there to dance as part of the audience. So she was proud of that.
Wow, that's awesome. You know, it's a rare experience when your kids or children get to attend some of your performances, and when they get to attend your Much Music video making thing, that is legendary there, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to feature her comments, just catching her name here.
My daughter, or?
Yeah.
It's Julia.
I see Julia. Yeah, I see Julia here. I'll just feature her comments again. Yeah, so Julia says, yeah.
Hi, Julie.
Yeah, there you go. She remembers this very well, she says. So tell us, in all the sort of different bands that you play with, is it quite a different kind of music throughout, or did you stay to a certain kind of music along the way? Was there one that you gravitated to and kind of stuck with?
Well, you know, that's a great question. All my career in music, I've tried to actually play as many different styles as possible. So I never really, I mean, if I did gravitate to one particular style, I guess it would be rock based on blues, that came out of blues, you know, with Cream and Led Zeppelin and so forth. But I mean, the Celtic thing, I love playing that because it's so different for a guitar player to play with bagpipes and try to come up with a line that works with bagpipes. And the blues band with Len Twill, that's very different as well. I mean, that's more pure blues, and everything in between. I've even played Klondike Day kind of music with bands. So I tried to learn as a guitar player as many different styles as I grew up as possible. Partly for the reason that I figured if there's work, there's going to be work for somebody who can play as many styles as possible, more than one style.
Right. So. Wonderful. So if, well, on the heel of that, what would be the advice that you would give to maybe musicians who are starting out or who are on their journey and wanting to take the similar kind of journey, long kind of career in music? What would be some lessons that you might share with them in your 50-some years of playing music?
Well, there's really so many of them. Number one, I would say learn as much as you can from as many different sources as you can. So, I mean, when I started guitar, there was no such thing as the internet and YouTube and all of that. These days, rather than take lessons, people have asked me, do you give lessons and who would you recommend? And lessons are great if you don't have the discipline to practice yourself. But YouTube has many beginner guitar all the way to intermediate to whatever you want lessons online, most of them for free, some of them you have to pay a small charge for, but they're everything that you ever wanted to learn is on the internet if you have the self-discipline to keep at it yourself. So I would go that route. I would definitely learn theory, as much theory as you need. You don't, as a guitar player, you don't need to learn everything about theory, but you need to know enough so that when you do a solo, for instance, you know how the notes that you play relate to the chords that are happening at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, theory is very important and shouldn't be overlooked. As far as reading music, I learned how to read music in classical guitar and at Grant McEwen. And in the 50 years, I never had to use it. Yeah, reading music is fine if that's what you're into. And reading charts is a must for any musician, the ability to read it through a chart map of a song. But as far as reading actual notes is concerned, not here in Edmonton anyways. So I think that would be my advice. Learn from as many players as you can. Go back, like for me, when it comes to blues, I kind of came to blues the long way around, listening to Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix, and then discovering who they learned from, going back to the American blues, and then learned from Robert Johnson and B.B. King and all back to those guys. So you can save yourself some time and start with those guys first.
You bet. Wonderful. Thank you for those wise words there, Percy. And as you think, let's just get into COVID a little bit early on here. So COVID has affected all of the musicians in many different ways, and all of us in different ways as well. How has it affected you? What is your take on COVID and as it relates to musicians, gigging musicians?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. At first, when it first came about, obviously we had to, the different bands I played with, all the gigs had to get canceled. And for the first couple of weeks, when COVID was around with no rehearsals and no gigs, it was kind of nice, to tell you the truth, because it was relaxing and, you didn't have to be anywhere at any particular time. And then after that 2-week sort of honeymoon period, it sort of suddenly became, God, I miss playing with people and playing in bands. And I mean, every musician I know is feeling the same thing. I actually had the opportunity yesterday to get together for the first time since this whole COVID thing started for just an outdoor acoustic jam where we were able to, keep social distancing together or apart. And it was wonderful just to play with other humans.
The things we take for granted, hey?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So tell us, as we are on our way out of what appears to be the kind of the heavy parts of COVID, hopefully it doesn't revert back to where it was. But as more and more things are possible now with events, what are you looking to do in the next, 2-3 months? You're looking to kind of do some, I don't know, any innovative ways of delivering your events?
Well, delivering the events, that's not really up to me. That would be up to the venues if they want to start opening it for performers. And I mean, they're open right now, but only instrumental. So how many local bands play just instrumental music? It's not going to go very far. But that will be determined by, I think, the venues as far as future gigs is concerned. As far as rehearsals is concerned, there's some creative thinking going on. One of the bands just communicated with me this morning about going to a big farmhouse for a rehearsal so that we could all be 6 feet apart from each other. Yeah. And I mean, that might work out. And another one of the bands is talking about renting a place and putting plexiglass between everyone. So that might work out as well. As far as persons of interest is concerned, we're kind of holding off right now to see how things turn out before we even get together for a rehearsal.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's I'm afraid it's gonna be a while before things return to some resemblance of normal.
Right. Now, maybe you can comment on this. In the speaking industry that I operate in, we think about possibly in the future having more hybrid events where perhaps you would have people in person in the venue, but at the same time also broadcasting and engaging people from other cities, other countries and whatnot throughout the world as a hybrid event. Do you see that happening with music?
I do. And one thing that COVID has done is opened up technology. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of the bands that are doing from home videos and compiling them together into song. We've done one ourselves and are working on another one of the bands I'm with. So That didn't exist, or at least didn't exist near to the same degree that it is right now with COVID. So I can see that carrying on. I mean, there's a concert going on right now with Brent Kissel, I believe it is. And he's going live on stage with the plexiglass surrounding the members and everybody in cars. And you know, that's a creative idea. I can see the future blending some of those things together for live performances. So definitely.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, hey, there's another clip that I like to show our viewers here. We got some photos as well, and there'll be stories from you on those photos. But the second clip I want to show is Classics with the Kit Kats, 2006. Tell us about that while I cue that up.
Okay, very briefly, the Classics, which is what the Nomads became at one point, and this was around 2006, the Kit Kat Girls, which used to have a band of their own, approached us and said, hey, we should do something together. And they do a whole repertoire of 60s stuff with the choreography and the moves as well. So this was one of the gigs we did with them. I believe it was at a large kind of Sportex building behind the Mayfield Hotel, put on by Bob Nagel. And it was a multi-band event, but it was wonderful. I love playing with the Kit Kat Girls. All
right. Well, let's view it here, and let me know if you can hear the sound.
Okay.
Wow, that was awesome. Complete with cracks and pops and you know, kind of almost like what is it? Vinyl records.
Yeah, I never thought of that. I should market that.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was fun. It was great doing gigs with them. I mean, they didn't play with us all the time. The gigs had to be a certain level of income, shall we say? But we did some great gigs with them, and it was such a change to do the classic stuff and then suddenly do these 60s pop group songs that I'd never played before. So a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Mr. Alan Quilly says he love it. And Terry Zawalski also give you some
hi, Terry,
my friend. So now, was there a low light that comes to mind? It's like you know, us musicians, we do things because of music, and sometimes just awesome high in terms of highlights and whatnot, very memorable, awesome. And then once in a while in the career that there must be a low point as well. Do you have one of those stories that you care to share with our viewers where, you know, this is what it means to be committed to your musicianship when you put up with stories like this?
Well, I have a million stories I could tell. But low point, there was quite a few low points. One that comes to mind was a gig, and this goes back to Captain Nobody, and it was in the 70s. It was in Ponoka. It was in the Tavern, and we were supposed to play 3 nights. And after the first night, this was in a stage when we thought we'd be classy, so we were dressed in suits, and there's a lot of farm boys at this place that just didn't like the way we looked. So we got invited to a party after the gig about 1 a.m. Out on somebody's acreage. And one by one, while we were at the party, a guy came up to each one of us in turn and said, hey, my buddy thinks he can take you on.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. So we just kind of, at first we laughed it off, and then we saw that he was being real serious. So we got together and decided we better get out of this party while we still can, kind of a thing. And we had a milk truck for a band van. So we're driving the milk truck out of the acreage, and he was standing at the gate with a case of beer and was throwing them at us.
Oh no.
As we're leaving. We managed to get out, and we clipped them as we got out because the gate was very narrow. Got onto the highway, 2:30 in the morning, and that's when the milk truck decided to die.
Oh no.
So we're standing on the highway at 2 in the morning, and we're seeing all these headlights coming out of the acreage. Obviously, this guy that we nicked has gone back in and said, "Hey, they ran me over or something."
Yeah.
So we're driving a few mic stands in the van and expecting the worst. And right about that time, the RCMP showed up.
Great.
So to make a long story short, they when we told them what happened, they just shook their head and said, "Yeah, it figures." And then the next 2 nights, the RCMP had called us and said, "You better watch yourselves on stage because there's rumors going around that they're out to get you."
Oh no.
Yeah, so that was a tough gig to do. We did finish the gig. Our keyboard player didn't. He left after the Friday night, went back home, but we finished without him. And the only incident, I think, one empty glass threw up on stage, and that was about it.
Yeah. Wow. So again, the stories that 50 some years of playing music, things like that. We hope that it doesn't happen often, but yeah, wow.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. There's some more comments here. Rocco says he said he played with a band called Flashback there too, and
Okay, yeah, I believe it. Flashback was one of several bands back then.
Your bandmate says hi. Glenn Harder also says hi here. You got lots of bandmates on here, my friend. You're with 6 bands that you belong to currently, or 5 or 6. Lots of bandmates here.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Mike Branagh, says Dukes of Hazzard style exit is what you do.
Yeah, and I'm sure Mike's got a few of those stories himself.
Yes. Mike told 1 or 2 on our interviews a few weeks back. Many decades with Mike as well. So tell us, in terms of, I want to show some photos soon here, and you can sort of take us down a trip down memory lane with those photos. But perhaps prior to those photos, there is a video that I want to show the viewers, and tell us the story about this video called the Talk to Me Hidden Agenda 2001. Tell us about that.
Right. Now that was with Gord Stanky and Hidden Agenda. So it was Gord Stanky, Angela McKenzie was on backup vocals and some guitar as well. Mm-hmm. And we had Wolf on keys. And I'm trying to think anyone else. Well, obviously, Eddie Zern on drums. It was great. Yeah. So the video was done by Gord. It was actually done at a place on the Southside. And again, they hired dancers for the video. And it was an original tune that Gord had written. So we kind of released it on our CD along with the video. Mm-hmm. It was fun to do. There was sort of supposed to be a bit of a story with it, but a bit haphazard.
Tell me about yourself. Describe yourself. I wanna hear your story. Tell me where you're from. It doesn't matter if you're on the run. What are you doing right now? Oh yeah, talk to me. Please now, won't you walk with me? I can tell you what you wanna hear. Don't tell me your secrets. Don't tell me about yourself. I wanna hear you sing your lullaby. Don't tell me your secrets. Don't tell me about yourself. I wanna hear you sing your lullaby.
I had a chance to make midnight Moses. He's preaching on the sand again. But it took me a wrong turn, baby, and here I am.
what you wanna hear. Tell me about yourself. Describe you, describe yourself. I wanna hear your story. Don't tell me about yourself. Don't tell me about yourself. I wanna hear you sing your lullaby. Don't tell me about yourself. Don't tell me about yourself. I wanna hear you sing your lullaby. I wanna hear you sing your lullaby. When I took a wrong turn, baby, and here I
Fantastic.
Like, oh, and I should mention Wolf Radke. His last name escaped my mind for a second on keyboards there. You know, I'm not a young man. I get pretty forgetful these days.
Yeah. What I like to do next is I'm going to ask you to talk about the journey and the story around your Hall of Fame there, induction. And while we're doing that, I'm going to show the photos, kind of like a slideshow flashing by while you talk about that. And then after we can talk about each photo as you share different things. But so at first, I'm just going to literally just play it on a slideshow kind of a thing as you reflect on your journey to, that very obviously high level of achievement, being recognized by your peers and your fans and the industry and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and just share the screen here. Give me a second to prep that there. So think about, kind of how you like to take us through. And the photos are going to just be displayed in just a certain order here, the way you sent them to me. And I'm just going to go ahead and give me a second here. Let's do this. And
So you want me to just start talking?
you bet. Just tell us whatever stories while the photos are being shown. So I will queue up the photo here. And so as you don't have to talk about the particular photo that's showing up, but because that would be quite a game there to try and match that up. But tell us again, just reflect on your journey up to this point.
Okay, well, I mean, the bio pretty much said most of it anyways. There was a lot of bands that I didn't mention in the bio because there was just too many to remember them all, and it's hard to keep track. But as I mentioned before, I love playing all different kinds of music, and I think that helped me get hired for all different kinds of gigs through the years. And meeting up with and playing with the classics was a huge thing for me because they started as the Nomads, of course, back in 1959 is when they first started up. And in 1989, they had quit in 1969. In 1989, they got back together for a reunion gig at the Kinsman Fieldhouse. And so I knew of the history of that band, and I got connected with them through our recording with Any Wonder in the studio. Gary McDonald was the engineer, and of course, he played with the Nomads. He was one of the founders. So when their regular guitar player couldn't make a gig, he called me up and I subbed for him for many gigs. And then they just turned around and said, "We want you full time." So that got me into meeting with some of sort of the original legends. And Al McGee, who was a sax player with that band, he was already a legend of the Edmonton Music Hall of Fame. So and then he joined me when we formed the Persons of Interest band afterwards. And in the interim, playing with Mel Deegan, or rehearsing with Mel Deegan, and playing with Barry Allen and the Rolfe brothers and all of those heroes from my past. And it was a gig that we did with Barry Allen that Pete the Rocker introduced himself. He's the one who sort of started that whole Music Hall of Fame. And I didn't know who this guy was, but a few weeks after he saw me play with Barry Allen, he approached me and said, we want to have you host a radio show on CJSR and put you in the Hall of Fame. And so I was ecstatic. That was a really nice accolade to get. It sort of reflected to me, hopefully, all the years that I've spent doing all this in the city. And I think it's a wonderful thing that he's doing with this Hall of Fame, as well as what you're doing, Dune. I think you're the first person I've heard that is doing this type of a video thing for local musicians and businesses. And I think it's all great. The support here in the music community of Edmonton is first rate. I don't think you can get better in any city that I've been in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was that picture.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to pause on each of the photos and ask you to comment on it. And
Sure.
I suppose now would be as good as any time to go ahead and do that. And so what I'm going to do is, let me just start from the other side here. I believe we go back to here. And
Yes.
was this the first photo that you have sent me? I think it is. Right? So-
It is. That was my first electric guitar. I was 12 years old.
Mhm.
It was a Winston Goldenhawk guitar, better known these days as the Taisco Del Rey series, built in Japan.
Yeah.
And a little Vox pacemaker amplifier in the basement of my parents' house. So,
Hey,
I thought I was a rock star.
That guitar case has the green that almost looked like what pool table.
Yes, yes. I mean, everything about this picture, from the furniture on, is so early or late 60s.
Yeah,
You know?
wow.
It's great.
Yeah.
Now, this was Captain Nobody version 1. This would be about 1973.
Wow,
Maybe-
you with the flying V there, Gibson, or?
Well, no, that was Gary Pond, who I grew up with, and we started playing guitar together at age 9. I would take lessons because my parents could afford them, and his parents couldn't. So I'd go back to his house after the lesson and show him what I learned on guitar, and we played together for almost 50 years in different
Nice.
bands. So that was his flying V, and I had the Gibson SG with the peace sign on it, and that band became sort of semi-legendary years after its inception, because we didn't play anything that people wanted to hear. We just played what we liked.
Mhm.
And amazingly enough, years later, I learned there was actually an audience that liked that stuff too.
So that's a lot of hair on stage there, my friend. So do the barbers back then have less work to do, or do they have more work? I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Well, it's funny. I mean, obviously that was the hair of the age that, like I say, around 1973, we actually got kicked out of a restaurant once for having long hair.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the scene was like back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is the same band. This was our infamous gig in Hay River.
Mhm.
That was a story in itself, because we spent a month up there. We did 2 weeks in Hay River, followed by 2 weeks in Yellowknife, and we drove, with a U-Haul trailer all the way up there. And there's a whole story of the car breaking down on the way there and getting poisoned by carbon monoxide through the exhaust and what have you. But we did make it, and this was playing in the high school in Hay River, and we were, I think they told us, the second rock band to ever play up there. So this would be about 1973, 74, it says. Okay.
Yeah, 1974. Yeah. So as one of the songs by the Eagles, love will keep us alive. Well, it looks like the love of music certainly helped with the carbon monoxide poisoning there.
Definitely. Definitely. And there again, that's the same band, just a, photo op that we did. And you can definitely see the hair we had back then. Out of that band, it's sad to say that there's only 2 of us left. The gentleman on the extreme left, Neil Martin, was the drummer. He's still alive. And of course, me and the rest of them have passed away within the last 4 years. Very sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. My daughter says I still have long hair. Yes, I do. But only since I retired from my day job. This is Cap Nobody again, what I call version 2, when Gary Pond left the band, and we hired Matt Adamson on another guitar. And in the extreme left is Bob Verge, who also played with the Graham Wafer back in the 60s. So he was a really well-known player. He played a 6-string bass with the Graham Wafer, but with us, he was playing guitar. So we were a 3-guitar plus bass band at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, it was fun. And after Cap Nobody's demise, I still wanted to play, so I got together with our bass player, Doug Jama, who's the other gentleman in the picture, and we spent 2 years on the road as a duo with a beatbox, and I played guitar and sang. Well, actually, funny with that one, we both had only ever sung backup in Captain Nobody previous to this, and then suddenly we're on the road singing lead. And it was a real learning experience. We got fired from the first couple of gigs because we sucked. But after that, we got better. And after a year on the road of all those 6-nighters back to back, we managed to get a home gig here in Edmonton and stayed at these gigs for 6 weeks at a time in Edmonton. So it was great. Yeah.
Hey, Percy, we can claim that this interview is international in the audience with the audience because there's Joseph who says hello from Croatia.
I see that. Wow. If Croatia is listening, I'm kind of scared here. It's pretty worldwide.
Yeah.
And this is 3-speed, which again kind of came out of the duo. We added a third member, and at one point we added a fourth member, and at one time there was 5 members, so we called it 5-speed then, and this was 3-speed. And we did eclectic stuff. We did a lot of swing stuff from the 40s, and we did a lot of harmony type stuff, and did some great gigs.
Mm-hmm.
So it was fun. And this was out of the blue. I can't remember the year that this formed. It was, let me think, 1985, 86, somewhere around there. So myself on the extreme left, Mike Uzwenko, who plays with Hot Cottage, is next to me. Bobby Mowbray, who was the chief singer-songwriter, and Ron Ralt next to him, who was also a well-known singer-songwriter and bass player, and then Rod Kirkpatrick on the extreme right. Mm-hmm. And we did really well. This is the band, again, that formed into Out of the Blue later, but with Ron Ralt, it was a well-liked band in the city. We did a lot of playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Slim Whitman's Nightmare. The story behind this was a band I formed around that same time, maybe 1990 or so, with a friend of mine from high school, although he went to a different high school. But he was in a band when I was in junior high that I used to go see and just admired him because he was a great guitarist and well-known at the time. And then he dropped out of the scene for years. And I saw him in a wedding band years later and approached him and said, hey, you shouldn't be in a wedding band. Let's get together and form a 2-guitar band. So we had it for a couple of years, and it was just me and him, and we'd hire drummers and bass players for the gigs. And Slim Whitman's Nightmare was my idea based on all those late night commercials showing Slim Whitman. I thought was ridiculous. So I thought we looked like his nightmare. This is Out of the Blue again, performing with Bobby Mowbray, Ron Ralt, and myself on stage.
Yeah, cool.
And this is with Lynn Schwill, with the Lynn Schwill Blues Band. We won the local leg of the International Blues Competition, and this was at the log cabin where the finals were.
Mm-hmm.
This was Any Wonder, the sort of the photo op that, all the bands took in the 80s.
Yeah,
Those kind of pictures.
Looking very almost family tie-ish.
Exactly. At least we had our shirts on.
Yeah.
And this is Cold Feet. Cold Feet goes back to 1983 when it started. And it's like a juggernaut. It just went on and on and on over the years, right up until Gary Pond, who was the leader of the band, is the gentleman in the center of the picture. He passed on just very recently. But up until he passed, that band was a mainstay. And there again, sort of with the philosophy of not necessarily playing what people can dance to or what they like, but playing tunes that we grew up with. Mm-hmm. And very much improvisation. I mean, we kept that tradition of the 20-minute solos in the mouth.
There you go.
So that was one of our highlights. I believe that was actually the song Crossroads, and the same with the next picture at the Commercial Hotel. Mm-hmm. So we did a lot of twin leads.
Yes, and by the judge of the faces, you guys were definitely into it and having lots of fun.
Oh, yeah. I miss that band.
Mm-hmm.
And now this was Uncaged. I can't remember the year. I believe it was still 80s with Angela McKenzie up front and Ken Jens on drums and Noel McKenzie on bass and myself. And we played for a couple of years together. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Played the local bars.
Yeah. Geriatrics.
The Geriatrics. I don't have a picture of that band, but I love the poster. I thought it epitomized that at that point, and this again would be around early 90s. It was Jerry Woolsey, and that's where the name Geriatrics came from. And we had the bass player, one of the original bass players from Jensen Interceptor, and Mike Uzwenko was on keys, and Stan Koenig on drums. And we were doing a lot of rock tunes and had a lot of fun with it. I mean, even the name Geriatrics, the play on what it's supposed to be, we had a lot of fun with that. We felt we were real old then. I didn't think I'd get to where I am now, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember we used to think 60-something was old. Remember that?
Yes. Definitely. And this was one of the poster pictures, promo pictures for the classics, looking like a bunch of fine gentlemen. But, it was a big band. It was the first band I ever played in with a real horn section. And that was great because my father used to play a lot of big band music when I was growing up, and I loved that horn section sound. So to be able to play with a band with horn section, especially some of the swing music we did, was great. So I'm not going to name everyone here; it would take forever, but that's what the band was. And this is Gord Stanky with The Hidden Agenda, with Angela McKenzie in front and Wolf Radke to the left of him, Ed Zern, the drummer, in the back with the hair, and of course Gord.
Fantastic.
And here we are performing. I don't know where this gig was, obviously outdoors somewhere, but it was a good band. We because Gord was in the band, we got a lot of high profile gigs. Like I said, warming up for Nickelback, although Nickelback hadn't broken to the big time that they were going to shortly after at the Shaw Conference Center.
So you catapulted Nickelback.
Yeah, that's
you launched them. You launched them. They were not that hot until you.
Yes, we told them, you guys are going to go somewhere.
There you go.
And this was a very memorable gig as well. This was a rock and roll reunion gig put on at the Winspear Center when Mel Deegan was still alive. So that's Mel up there singing. Behind him on the right is George Tomasco, who was with the Fireballs back from the 60s. And the Classics became the band for Mel Deegan and George Tomasco for that particular gig. It was a great gig. Lots of bands from the 60s. And this is with Barry Allen. And this was the New Rebels. The story from the bio. Basically, that band formed after Mel Deegan passed away. The band just kind of approached Barry and said, "Hey, you want to get back into singing again?" Because he had been out of performing for years and years and years, with the studio, doing all the studio work. And he thought about it and thought, yeah, maybe it's time I got back in the public again. So we became his New Rebels because, of course, his band in the 60s was Barry Allen and the Rebels. So we were the New Rebels. And it was a gas playing with Barry Allen. He's a real gentleman and a great singer and songwriter. And Lynchville Blues Band. This is the band that won the local competition for IBC and went on to perform in Memphis, which again, that's a huge highlight. So we went as a 6-piece band, which is kind of unusual for Memphis because they're usually only financing, at least at a local level, 5-piece bands. But we were a 6-piece band, so we thought, hell, we'll get into that anyways and see how it goes. And these were wonderful people to play with. The musicianship in this band was first rate. We didn't do great in Memphis, but just being there, seeing all the incredible bands that showed up. I think there was 164 bands from around the world performing there in Memphis. And just being there and being part of it was incredible. And here's one of my current bands. This is Persons of Interest. So again, everything evolves. Persons of Interest came out of Barry Allen and the New Rebels. So when we were playing with Barry Allen, we were doing all Barry Allen's tunes, and we just wanted to stretch out a little bit and do something different, do some classic rock, which we all grew up on. And for that, we needed to get a different singer than Barry Allen, because Barry, of course, wasn't into that. So we got Christina McKay, who's the singer you can see in the center. And we've gone through some other personnel changes, but right now from the extreme left, we have Jazz Nip on keyboard. Then there's myself, Christina, Brewster Hammer on drums, and Glenn Harder on bass. And all those musicians have been around the Edmonton scene for many years.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And this is the same band with a few different members playing the Edmonton Outdoor Rock Festival at Royal Alex Park. It was a great gig.
It was.
We opened, I think it was 2017, we opened the festival.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Fantastic stage. So tell us, do you have a story that you like to share that we haven't sort of brought out in you yet? Think of a special story that are unrelated to these photos that you haven't shared yet that a viewer would find interest in.
Geez, that's I really don't. I mean, if you want to get away from music, one of my hobbies or pastimes since I've retired has been hiking and bike riding. And
tell us about that. Tell us about that.
Well, I did attempt when I was 57. My son and I attempted to do the West Coast Trail on west coast of Vancouver Island, which is it's listed, I think, in Reader's Digest as one of the 10 most grueling hikes in the world. We didn't make it. It's 75 kilometers. We got about 35 kilometers to the only place where you can get off of the trail. And we decided to pay our way and get off the trail at that point. We were just dead tired. It was the first multi-day hike I think I'd ever done. And I hadn't eaten enough. And I'm diabetic as well. So I think my blood sugar was starting to play a role in that. And we were just exhausted. So that was an experience. And since then, I've done also Machu Picchu in Peru. Done the 4-day hike to Machu Picchu there, and that was wonderful. Climbed many peaks since then. My son is a major mountain climber, so he climbs mountains I only look at and turn my head away.
Wow. So that surprises me. I'm sure some of our viewers would be surprised to hear that you said you climbed many peaks. So I assume those are mountains you mean when you say peaks?
Well, yeah, man. Mountains in my world. My son looks at them and just laughs his head. But I mean, as an example, the Sulphur Mountain in Banff, I've done a few times. There's a place called Mission Peak in California. I've done a few times. I've done there's a trail across from the Columbia ice fields, well known. Wilcox Trail, done that a few times. So it's more, semi-mountain.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. That's a surprise. That is definitely a surprise to me. And do you have another surprise where, something that's not music that you are into or used to be into that you like to share, either one or two things? Maybe you have 5 things that you used to do that nobody knew about. Do you have a secret kind of interest or hobby?
Well, I don't have a lot of secrets. I used to write a lot. And that's been something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to be a writer. When I was in grade 5, I was writing James Bond novels and selling them to classmates. They were actually paid money for them. And I'd love to. I've always been fascinated by writers and the use of the language. And so I guess if I had my way, other than music, that's what I would be as a writer.
Well, that is an awesome thing. Probably another thing that surprises some of our viewers and listeners who may not know that about you.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to share another clip here. Tell us about this compilation of one of your current bands, persons of interest. Tell us about this clip that we're about to show here.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of these clips with the bands that I'm in, with mostly persons of interest. This is our classic rock band, and just to keep the excitement or keep people knowing that we're around, occasionally we put out these videos, and they're compilation videos. So I took a couple of different gigs here. Newcastle was one of them, and the other one was a Connor's Pub in St. Albert, and combined the two with the audio from the gigs, just to do sort of a, I guess you call it a promo video. That if there's a club interested in the band, I could send it out to them, or send them a link to the video so they can see what the band looks and sounds like, because that's important in today's marketing for bands. You can send them a CD and they can say, yeah, how many hours in the studio did you spend getting this perfect of a sound? What do you really sound like live and look like? So that's what this is about. So this is persons of interest doing a few different tunes we do.
Wonderful. Let's take a listen and watch here. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Here's a quiz for our viewers. They've been watching and enjoying your comments and your stories and your insights. But here is a quiz for our viewers. How many songs were in that clip, in that compilation? Okay, go ahead, folks. Chime in. How many songs? We'll wait until we hear from some viewers here. Just take a guess. Now, I'm hoping you know how many songs. Percy.
I don't know how many.
Okay, so then, maybe we'll just approximate. We'll let them guess. And if they know how many songs that comes close, you can give them a prize, whatever that is. But I did not count, so I don't know either. But so Rocco says he thinks it's 22. So we got 22 for Rocco.
I think that's too high.
That's too high. So 10. Aria says 10.
I would say 10 is probably very close.
10 is very close. And right? So we got a musician and a doctor, and it looks like one of them can count a bit better than the other, maybe. This one goes to 11. Mike Braniff says this one goes to 11. So I don't know.
Mike may be right.
So
I want to thank everyone for putting these comments all the way through this and watching. I think that's great.
Yeah, yeah. You might have missed the one where Dr. Arya Sharma said good stuff while we were playing that clip there with all those songs.
I see it now.
Yeah. So well, wonderful. Thank you for sharing all those video clips and the photos with us. As we round the corner on wrapping this up, my time is quite flexible, Percy. So if you have more stories or comments to share, we would love to hear more from you, my friend. Now, here's a challenge for you. If you
Okay.
want me to show I know I've been watching your feeds, and lately you've been doing some classic stuff on your YouTube, actually Facebook Live. You're trying to do some classical songs. Any of those clips you like to share on an ad hoc basis here that you were not prepared to do so? I'm very happy to go onto your Facebook page and be able to pull any video that you like to kind of share with our viewers. There are still 16 viewers on right now, my friend.
Wow, those are diehards, I guess. No,
we're living in COVID times here.
Yes, with those last 3 videos I posted, like you mentioned, the classical one, and I think I did a pseudo jazz one, and those were songs I had written, and then the last one I was a song I'd written. I played it on piano. All of those were pretty personal to me, and I had a tough time deciding even if I wanted to post them, just because they were songs very close to me. And so, I'm a little sketchy about you playing them at this point. They were more for the fact that I records.
Oh,
of those
yeah.
songs. So
Your audio was breaking up a little bit. So maybe if you could repeat
I
just
see
the
one.
last. Your audio was breaking up a little bit there, Percy.
but yeah. It was just a way for me to have a recording of these original things that I had written 30 years ago.
Yeah, nice.
And so that's why I did them. But to play them, it's a little uncomfortable.
All right, I just thought I'd bring it up, but I did enjoy them. Looking at you playing your classical guitar on some of your original compositions, and just a different side of you that I haven't seen. Normally I see you always with a full band rocking out
Right.
on either an SG, or I guess of late it's been mostly Strat, right?
Do you actually remember the SG, Dune?
No, I just from the photos. No, I do
Okay.
not. In person, I've only seen you with the Strat. So let's talk
I
guitar.
retired.
Let's talk guitars.
Sure.
You obviously like Strats and SG. Do you collect guitars? Are you into different kind of guitars? What's your thoughts
Yeah.
on guitar?
Well, if you look at Alan Quilley's collection, my collection of guitars is nothing like his. I mean, he's got tons, and mine are all beat up, but I've got about 14 or 15 guitars.
Mhm.
They're all electric. I'm really not much of an acoustic player, although I do have a Line 6 acoustic and a Godin acoustic.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess you'd say I collect guitars. I still have that SG, and that's a 1968 SG. But it's a very difficult guitar to play, because I'm not sure if you're familiar with the SGs, but at least that one was very soft, and the neck was so soft that if you squeezed a little bit on a note, the whole guitar was out of tune.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which, see, I learn something new every day, and today this is one of those things I learned. I thought, being a hardtail, it'd be good in tune, but no, not the early ones, eh?
Well, not the early ones, and this was there was different models. This was called a special, SG special. It's the same model guitar that Pete Townsend played in Woodstock, and I know that because when I looked up the serial number of mine, it showed that it was 10 serial numbers away from Pete Townsend's guitar from Woodstock. And that's the one he smashed on stage at Woodstock. And now I can see why.
Yeah.
Like I say, they've improved immensely since then. The last ones I've tried are great guitars, but those early ones, really hard to play out of tune, or play in tune, pardon me.
Yeah, you see, your friend, your buddy Rocco also called out Mr. Alan Quilley there. Mr. Alan Quilley, we have found you out, my friend. It appears you have some guitars under
60 guitars.
Alan Quilley is practically my neighbor. Wow, I shouldn't. He's in Sherwood Park anyway. It's in the same town that I am in.
We CFI band rehearses at his place.
Yeah. Laura says, good to see you, Percy, and hope to be hearing you play again in person real soon.
Well, hope to see her come down. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So as we round the corner here, is there a sentiment, or maybe, you know what I'm going to say? Take us home, Percy. Take us home, however you like to take us home. You could be rambling on for the next 20 minutes. I'm fine. I don't have another business meeting today. Take us home, however you like to.
Well, I just like to first of all thank you, Dune, for doing this. I think it's a real benefit for local musicians and businesses to have a show like this that sort of promos the people that are out there, and especially at this time during COVID. Other than that, I'd like to thank everyone for the comments that they've posted. I had a good laugh at some of them, and I appreciate every one of them. And just like to thank Edmonton music community for all the support over the years. And hopefully that continues before my arthritis cripples me to no end.
Yeah. Well, Alan Quilly is calling for a big ending. So whatever it means, whatever it means for a guitar player to have a big ending.
Yeah, a big.
As long as there's no guitars being harmed in this exercise of the big ending, exactly. We're fine with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, like I say, thank you so much for this, Dune. I think this is great, what you're doing.
Well, thank you, Percy, for joining us. Mr. Percy Marshall of, what is it, 55 years or 50-some years career in music. And let me just summarize here. You're the first one I know of who, in fact, hold on. There's still some questions coming on. I can't wrap it up. They can't have enough of you, Percy. First of all, let me see here. Mr. Quilly is laughing away, so that's good. Laugh is good. We are suppliers of laughter, which is good, Percy. We have Gail here says thank you, and so that's great. And we have Aria. Aria wants another story. Dr. Aria Sharma, the world-renowned expert in obesity and speaking internationally everywhere. He wants to hear the story about Venice picture behind you there, my friend.
Well, you're going to be disappointed, Aria, because there's not much of a story behind you. You're right, it is Venice. My wife just saw the picture in a gallery and bought it because she liked it. We did, my wife and I did honeymoon, as the bio said, in Europe for 6 weeks, and Venice had a kind of special place on our memory of that trip. We were broke and out of money, so it has a special importance.
That's awesome. Awesome. Gail is having a good time here. So, yeah, let's see here. Terry says, hope to see you live soon. So you are Great. You are well loved and well appreciated in all that you do, music and otherwise in a community, my friend. And Percy, thank you so much for spending the hour and a bit with us here and sharing your stories and music and insights with us. Best wishes with the relaunch after sort of COVID kind of difficult time here that we're starting to ease up, and best wishes with re-engaging with music live and all that. And so thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Dune, and thanks everyone for watching.
You bet. Thank you to our viewers now and later who there's actually always more viewers who watch later on because of scheduling and time and whatnot. So when you watch later on, we thank you as well for tuning in later, and feel free to comment in the stream there. Percy will monitor it and respond to your comments or questions. But thank you, viewers, for joining us and commenting and interacting with us today. Until we meet again, take care of yourself, take good care of yourself, take good care of one another, and have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.